Well, good morning and welcome to Wednesday Morning Live again. We are here with Marshall and Tiffany. You may notice that we have the same clothes on. We recorded it because I didn't want to make them drive back out here again and all of that. But Marshall and Tiffany have been married for 31 years. Please watch the first week so you can get caught up on that. But they have 3 daughters, with the final one still being at home. The other 2 are already out. One of them is a nurse at Oceana. One of them is a teacher, but having a child and married a doctor, or going through, what do you call the phase that he's going through now? Residency. So her husband's going through that. And then Marshall has his doctorate. Tiffany has her degree in business. She ran CHKD, finances and all that stuff. Marshall had 22 years as a chief in the military. And so we are talking to them about parenting, and they have adult children, as well as a child who is still home, Lexi, who had a birthday last week. And we are excited to have you guys back with us or here with us. Yes. And we're going to jump right into our next question, if we will. And the topic is, how do we as parents grow in Christ while raising children to follow Christ? And so that's what we're trying to figure out. So we have a lot of military family. We're in a big military town. While being in military, what were some struggles and resolutions you faced in marriage and in parenting?
Wow, I guess I'll start that off. Being in the military, one of the struggles, I say I probably struggled the most. I'm a family guy.
Yeah.
I love being around. I love being present, and I love doing things with the family. So going on 5 cruises and all the workups for that, and having to be out for quite a bit of time, one of the things I just kind of leaned on my faith. It was always a struggle, but I made it through my faith. Yeah. I read a passage one time that talked about God does not allow a sparrow to fall from the tree, unless a sparrow doesn't fall unless God knows it. Yeah. And so little things like that I held on to, that God, even though I'm not present, you can take care of my family better than I can even when I'm present. Yeah. And so I would just lean on Him to try to guide me through. When your faith is really a part of you, there's nothing like the Word to console you, to guide you in the peace that you need.
Right.
Yeah. With Marshall being in the Navy, like he said, and having to go in and out to sea, there were struggles as far as when they go out to sea for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
As a wife, as a mother, you have to do everything on your own.
Right.
You have to make decisions on your own. Yes, you can email if you get an occasional phone call right. in, try to bounce things off, but pretty much you're the one that's there, and so you have to make the decisions. Yeah. You then start saying, when dinner will be this easy or that easy. I'm taking out the trash. I'm doing the dishes, right. or the kids are. So you get into a routine. Okay. When they're not here. Then when they come back.
Oh, wow.
That routine's gone.
Yes. And yeah. So a lot of times he would try to come back, and because he would want to help in any way possible, he would try to jump in and do whatever, and it was like, okay, wait a minute. Right. You've been doing it like this.
That's right.
And so that would cause a lot of struggles in there. And so we had to talk about, okay, yes, I know you're back. Yes, I know you want to jump back right. in and help out, but let's ease back into it. Yeah. How about you take the trash? I'll still do the dishes. We do dinner. If we want a sandwich tonight, it's not going to be a big meal like what maybe you want. Right. Let's do a sandwich tonight. In a couple of days, we'll do the big meal. So then you kind of have to compromise on how to ease back into a normal life with having your husband back home. Kids, it's the same thing. Our kids would get used to, the last time I saw Daddy, he left and he was gone for 6 or 7 months. So if he would leave to take trash out, they would cling to him because they thought, you leave, I'm not going to see you again for 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, and he's like, I'm going right there,
yes.
right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he would just take them with him and say, I'm just taking the trash out. I'm not leaving for a long time. So just kind of different things that you have to do to acclimate yourself when they leave and then when they come back.
Wow.
Yeah. And to piggyback on that, also what we struggled with was the fact that leaving was so hard, we found ourselves arguing and having little mini fights to make the leaving easier. It sounds crazy and counter.
From your standpoint, it's I'm leaving and I'm worried about what's going to happen while I'm gone. And from your standpoint, it's I'm getting ready to have all of the stress and responsibility of parenting.
Right.
Yes.
And you bring that stress level together.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And then an argument ensues, and it wasn't until opening myself up to the other resources for the Navy people. They have Fleet and Family Services that come out and train you. You know, when you're preparing for deployment, these are some of the feelings you feel.
Okay, say that again.
Fleet and Family Services, they are located at your naval station, as well as they come out to the commands, to the ships and stuff, to help you with the transition of coming back home, as well as dealing with going away. And so we opened ourselves up to these kind of resources to be able to understand why is it that leaving was so hard, where arguments would come up.
Yeah.
And so they broke it down for us as a crew to understand. And I shared that with Tiffany. I said, you know, this is what we're doing. And once we understood that and applied what we were learning through Fleet and Family Services, that helped us with our arguments. We argued less because we knew why we were arguing.
Gotcha.
And so I would say always open yourself up to resources in your church, resources at the base, like Fleet and Family Services.
So you would recommend counseling for marriages who are struggling to help find
Yes, I would definitely recommend counseling for a family.
Because I think there's a lot of marriages, even with kids, who are struggling because they think, well, we just need to rely on God.
Yeah.
And there's not an understanding of bringing that relationship together. So whether it be military or parents or just a married couple, get help.
Yeah.
Yes.
And let me throw out there, like we have a counselor that we give a fee to, and we recommend you. We don't know, but you go talk to them, and we pay for your first session. Like
That's
the church pays for your first session. So if you need that resource, contact us. Let us get you the information so that you can have that opportunity. But then also make sure that you find the help that is offered.
And one thing I'd like to say with that, Kevin, if I can, I had one of my kids asked me, because we were talking to somebody and they knew it was a newly married couple, and they were like, well, why are y'all talking to them? They're just married. And I tried to explain to her, you don't go to talk to someone when the problems arise.
Right.
At that point, it's too late.
Yeah.
So when you are newly married, get the counseling in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's in the honeymoon phase and you feel like everything's fine, but get the counseling then.
Yeah.
We take our car in for oil changes every so many miles.
Right.
We take our cars in to get maintenance when we see the little red light come on. But when it comes to our marriages, for some reason, we wait until that limb needs to be cut off when you could have just applied a Band-Aid by getting counseling a lot earlier. So that's one thing I would say is get counseling early on in your marriage. Don't look at it as, well, we're not having problems, we don't need it.
Right.
Just look at it as this is a preventative measure.
Because and this is kind of off topic, but it needs to be covered. We need to learn how to fight as a married couple too, because a lot of times it's like, hold on, I got some lint down here. Let me dig deep and there's 3 years ago. Let me throw that in there. And that's not fair. Because you're now holding. And so, that's true, man. Listen, wisdom.
Learning how to fight, as well as annually trying to do something to enrich your marriage. You know, a lot of times Christians feel like it's an embarrassing thing to go to counseling, to fine-tune what you have. Like Tiffany said, you know, you don't want to wait till you need a tourniquet. You know, you need a limb removed. Go while you need a Band-Aid. And if you can do those things today, 31 years in, we fine-tune annually. You know, and I look forward to, during a pandemic, we can't do anything, of course, but we can read and grow our relationships and share with the things that we're reading, to fine tune and have that time of, hey, why do you feel like this? Or is there anything I can improve on? And we open ourselves up to each other to share that.
Yeah. And the reason that we're taking this rabbit trail is this is for parents, and there's nothing more than the devil wants than for you to be separated, you to be against each other, and you to split, because then he has a better chance of getting a hold of your kids as well.
Yes.
And so if he can ruin your marriage, then he can do something in your kid's life. So get help with your marriage if there's a struggle there. Anything else on that topic?
That's it.
Okay, so that's the military thing wrapped up into the parenting thing, wrapped up into marriage and all that. As a parent working a full-time job and dealing with stress of life, like you both were working full-time jobs, you both had stress, you had issues you had to deal with. What are safeguards that I need to implement in my life as a parent? What are some safeguards that you would throw out?
I would say balance, balance, balance.
Okay.
You have to be truthful with yourself and then be open to your spouse's input. There's nothing like asking your spouse, kind of a segue from what we were talking a second ago into this, but opening up yourself to saying, hey, what can I do better? How do you feel about this? Being opening to see that, is there areas that I need to correct in my life? Is there areas I need to shore up in our marriage, in our parenting? We don't have, if there's anything, we don't have as parents enough balance in our lives. And even Jesus, I wrote in my notes here that even Jesus, as important as he is, he took time to rest. He took time to go off and talk to his disciples. He took time before he can serve more, he did less.
Right.
And I know that for me, I needed to have a life of balance as well as a life of like, okay, let's get this done. Let's keep this moving. But there were times I had to pull back. What would you say on top of that?
I think that having a job and then also dealing with ministry, when it comes to work, don't bring your stress of work home and put that on your kids and your spouse. When it comes to working and ministry, even don't bring ministry problems home and put that on your spouse or put that on your kids. I know that things can happen at work that stress you out. I know things can happen in ministry that stress you out. But once you reach the door, you need to somehow take that off and step into what your role is going to be, which is a parent and a spouse.
That might be something where you need to have some form of counseling where you can share with somebody outside of the home. Because I was talking to the buddy, and he said, too often I come in the house with my ear to the phone talking work or ministry or whatever, and my kids see me walk in with that phone in my ear, and they've already said, "Oh, Daddy's still at work." And so,
you have to find a way to, if at all possible, I'm not available at this point on,
right,
or I can be available again from this time, and then explain to your kids or your wife or your husband, whichever way it is, I have this that I need to handle at this time.
Stop making the little things emergencies.
Yes.
But we're so connected. It's like, I can deal with this now. It'll take me 5 minutes. They'll understand. And that 5 minutes turns into 8.
Right.
And then you find something else.
Yes.
And it's a hole you never find the bottom to.
Yes.
That's good. That's really good.
And I think there's times too where you may have stress at work, things that can be solved with just even conversations. Stress within ministry, things that can be solved with, just having conversations. And I think a lot of times, I've said this before, people have the right conversations, but with the wrong person. You need to have the right conversations with the right people. If there's something that happened at work with a particular situation or person, you need to handle it with them. Don't bring that home and then you want to argue with your husband or argue with your kids because you didn't take...
I'm bad about that. I do.
How I married up.
Yeah, that's right.
She's so smart. She's so smart.
I mean, and the same thing is in ministry too. A lot of times in ministry, because we feel like, I can't show that I'm upset or I'm not pleased with something. Right. I have to make it like everything is a bed of roses. And I'm not saying be a bull in a china shop, but have the conversations that need to be had. Yes. So then when you come home, you're not spewing poison onto your family because you didn't take care of it at church.
Yeah, and our family is where we feel safe.
Yes.
And I think every counselor will tell you, like, the reason we spew on them is because we know that they love us and they care about us, but they get the raw end of the deal every day.
Right.
Yeah. And then on top of that, with the right conversations, have that conversation with your spouse. Depending on what type of career path you have, you should be able to share with your spouse, or if you're a single parent, share with your children, hey, when mom or dad gets home, give me 30 minutes to unwind.
Right.
You know, some people, I was good for unwinding in the car, listening to an audiobook, or when I would drive home from the Navy, because, you know, the Norfolk traffic sometimes is, Hampton traffic is crazy, you know, so listening to preaching, music, audiobook, whatever. Some people are good unwinding on the way home like that. Others may need to have that 30 minutes once they get home, and then be available from there. And sometimes that works as well. And if you have that conversation with your spouse or with your child, that will, I think, pay off big rewards for you in the end.
We're kind of covering one of the questions. I'm going to throw it out that way we make sure that we get it covered. But what are the habits I should create as a parent, you know? And that's kind of what you're talking about here. I just want to make sure that if you have something more specific on that before we move on.
Yeah, being consistent, Kevin. Being consistent. Be who you say you are in front of people, as well as...
If you haven't watched the first week of this, you need to go back and watch it, because that's how this started, was parents need to be consistent. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yes, being consistent in front of your children, being consistent with what they see at church and in front of others. Because what you're wanting to do is build the confidence, and when there's a crisis that may come, and crises come to all families, that you can still be someone that they trust to lean on, to open up and give valued advice and opinions to. But if they see inconsistencies, they see mom and dad not being authentic in front of other people, and yet you're raging something else at home.
Right.
You've just destroyed everything that you're trying to build for Christ in front of everybody else, or you're damaging your own ministry. Your family is your first ministry.
Yes.
And so consistency helps with that. We always say, and I tell our church, that you want to practice in private what you want to perfect in public. So
that's
practice
good.
at
that's
home.
Really good.
You know, if you're thinking about the Christian at home that's serving, that's doing, and smiling, hugging, greeting like we want our co-laborers to do, at home you should be doing that as well. You should be loving and smiling and hugging, and being that consistent person that your kids see at home too. So
that's good. Anything else before we move on? All right, we're dealing with the question that we started with. All right, after 2 sessions. How do I pass my relationship with God to my children? And I realize that this is a personal choice for kids, so I can't just hand it to them. And I think there's a lot of parents, you know, we see that with infant baptism, I believe, that false sense of security. But how do I pass my relationship or give a desire for my kids to have a relationship with Christ while growing in my relationship with Christ?
I would say make Christianity fun. Sometimes
is it fun? Christianity's fun.
Sometimes, you know, I've had the most fun as a Christian that I've had even in the world. You know, and you know, some of us have lived pretty fun worldly lives.
Yeah.
But you know, I like smiling, laughing, and seeing people celebrate and everything, even as a Christian. But making Christianity fun. You know, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to look a certain way and trying to be a certain thing, but just make it fun. Enjoy. Share when you're listening to a song. Lexi and I have this one song. It's called "I Got That." You know, that we listen to on the radio. It comes on and we both start dancing.
Lexi's smiling right now, by the way.
We both start dancing and doing stuff. But I make, you know, I don't make it, well, you shouldn't listen to this kind of secular music or whatever. But I enjoy the Christian music that is playing. And so I show her that, you know, Christianity can be fun. It's not all about rules and regulations.
I play basketball not because of the rules, but because of the game.
Yes.
Like if I focus on the rules, I can't step out of bounds. I can't touch you. I can't.
There's no fun.
Yeah.
It's no fun.
But I focus on knowing that I'm going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
It's still fun.
Right.
And when I make a mistake, it's like, I should do better.
We'll laugh at that too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
When I brick it.
Yeah.
But that fun makes it obtainable because it's not this weight of, I can't mess up. God's not going to hear my prayers because I've messed up. So we make it fun, and then I'm going to say this, and I'll let you take it from there. And then find ways within the day. Again, it's something that we live. Find ways daily to make your faith an opportunity to share with them, to celebrate.
Yes.
And so what I think probably do good is we're good with making our faith an opportunity for us, for each other, as well as with Lexi. We're always Christ-centered with everything that's happening. We always use our lives as a way to make an opportunity to talk about him, to share him.
And let's go back before you were a pastor, before you were full-time ministry.
Yeah.
How can we share with someone who's not in full-time ministry? Because what I get the excuse a lot is, but you're a pastor.
Yeah.
And I'm sick of hearing that because I'm not just a pastor. I work another job and, try to, and it's still a struggle raising kids.
Yes.
But what do we tell people who are working secular jobs, as we would call them? Yeah. How do you keep yourself focused on bringing the spirituality in?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. For me, even before I was a Christian, it was always, I want to serve my Father. I want to work for my Father. Before I was even a pastor, I was saying that. I would drive in. I had my retired car that I was able to get. This car I dreamed of having. I'm not going to say what it was, but this car I dreamed of having. And when I finally got it before I retired, I remember driving through the gate one day, and this gate guard, young guy in the military, stopped me to check my ID, and he was like, "Oh man, nice car, Chief." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." I said, "Man, my father got it for me." I said, "Man, how he owns this and that."
Yeah.
What's going on? He thought I was talking about my dad.
Oh snap!
And I was like, "Man, God is so good." I said, "I just trusted him for this car." And he looked at me. I saw it change on his face.
Yeah.
But even in my office, when I worked in admin, I would have all my manuals on the desk, on the bookshelf, and I had my Bible up there too. And so we would take time, even on the ship. I was on two carriers here, the Eisenhower and the George Washington, from my time at sea when I was here in the Navy. And I always had my Bible among all my other literature.
Yeah.
And I always had a connected Bible study. If there wasn't a Bible study, whether I was at sea or on shore duty, like on shore duty, I started Bible study. I asked the command because they trusted my character.
Yeah.
I wasn't, going around making everything like, "Oh, you shouldn't cuss."
That's right.
"Oh, you can't do this." But I just lived my faith. I wore my faith on my sleeve. And having that trust, I was able to start Bible studies where there were no Bible studies. I was able to attend Bible studies on the ships when there were no Bible studies. Or if there was a Bible study going, I would attend the Bible studies. But I always look for opportunities to discuss the faith and to share. And that was well before I was a pastor. I've only been pastoring a few years.
It's not the pastor's job to minister. It's the Christian's job to minister. Christ followers.
Yes. And so when people see that, I've had so many more people attracted to Christ before I was a pastor than even as a pastor. Because they saw the realness of Christ in my walk, and they would come up to me and say, "Hey, could you pray with me about such and such? My sister's got cancer, or this situation's came up." And I'm like, wow. But they're watching, because people are watching you.
Right.
But I've always shared even before, and from there, I didn't concentrate on trying to do a certain way. Was say a prayer like this, look at this, do you know the Romans road? I would just say, hey, everybody struggles with sin. Everybody needs help. And if it wasn't for, if it's something that you could do yourself, then you wouldn't need Christ. You wouldn't need a God to intervene. And so because we need him, he comes and he makes himself available to us. And so I try to reason with people that way. Even before I was a Christian, I would do that. And I would lead them to Christ even that way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I think with working secular jobs and with raising kids, trying to keep everything Christ focused, I think the biggest thing is you have to be an authentic Christian. That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
In your secular job, you have to be the authentic Christian. Like Marshall said, you would see his Bible, or he would even say Bible verses without saying John 1:1 says, or, he would find roundabout ways to say things.
Yeah.
Like he said about telling the guy, oh, my father gave it to me.
Right.
And then lead into, my dad, he owns cattle.
Yeah.
He owns hills.
Right.
And they don't even know you're giving them
Land,
Bible.
yeah, it's
And so I think, but you have to be an authentic Christian, because you'll be amazed how your secular world and your Christian world will collide.
yeah.
You can be in the store
Yes.
and you're with your family, or let's say you're doing a job for church and you're with church people, and then you see your secular coworkers come up. Now, if you are not an authentic Christian at work,
Come on, somebody.
you are a worldly Christian at work, and
So,
then
what you're saying is,
I knew you were going to get on that.
I think you're making it very clear. Go ahead.
yeah. So when you have those secular workers that come up to you,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you try to put on the Christian hat,
Doesn't work.
those people
Yeah.
are going to be looking at you like, what? They
Yeah,
don't act like that.
I'm at church.
They
I go
don't.
to church.
Yeah, they don't. What?
Yeah.
You go to church? You do
So,
what?
I had when I worked at FedEx, there was a route next to me, and the guy, he had a filthy mouth. Filthy.
Yeah.
What in the world? And so anyway, we would talk. And so finally one day I invited him. We had a big Sunday, and I said, hey, man, why don't you come to church with me? He's like, man, why don't you come to church with me? I'm the head usher. And I was like, whoa.
Wow.
And it was that point, I was younger, but it was at
Yeah.
that point I was like, I wonder how people view me. Am
Yeah.
I an authentic Christian?
Yes.
So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Because, yes, if you are living like the world Monday through Friday, and then you're trying to mingle with Christians, you're not a true believer.
Yeah.
You need to get that thing straight. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be judgmental. What I'm saying is you need to figure out what is it in my life that needs to change
Right.
Yes.
to be an authentic
Right.
Christian. There are counterfeit bills that feel really close to the real thing.
Yep.
Yes. And that goes for social media as well.
Mm.
You can't be one person on social media and then outside of it in the church you're something totally different. Because what you are there, you are who you are.
Yeah.
And so people are
And I
watching
think
it all.
Tiffany told my wife, this was a while back, but a person will show their true selves.
Oh, yes.
And when they do, you know who they are.
Yes, yes.
And their true self is going to come out, and you'll know whether it's on social media or in person, because if
Yeah.
they don't match,
Yeah.
it's the one that's not to your face.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that too is a way that you can pass your relationship on with your kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because when the kids see authenticness, then that's something that they want. And not just showing, you're this way at home, you're this way at church, but also you show the other things. You show your disappointments, you show anger. Because again, if you show Christianity as something that's up here and it can't be obtained, I don't think kids will want to I don't think they feel like they can obtain it. And so therefore they won't even try. But I think the biggest thing is that when kids see that their parents are hypocrites, they live one way at home, and then they come to church, and then they're, oh, praise the Lord.
So how else are our kids going to live?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to remember most decisions don't happen at church. They happen at home. All three of our daughters came to Christ. We're watching a movie. We're coming home from something at church, or something was said in a Bible study or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was at home that they came broken, crying, shaking, when we're like, what's going on? What's wrong? What's
Yeah.
wrong? I want Christ.
Right.
I want Jesus.
Yeah.
And it was different scenarios, but they were always at home that they felt safe and vulnerable to ask us
Yeah.
to pray with them.
And
to
as
receive Christ.
a parent, you should feel comfortable being able to talk to your kids and lead them to Christ.
Yeah.
And if you don't, that is an indictment on your relationship with Christ.
Yes, yes. You should be ready to go, open to pray, You know,
and I'm tired of hearing Christians saying, and I understand new Christians and growth, so don't get me wrong on that. But I'm tired of hearing seasoned Christians say, "Well, I'm just not comfortable sharing with somebody how to get saved."
Yeah.
That's because you're not sharing all along.
Because you're not sharing all along.
And that goes into parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
If you're not comfortable talking with your kids about the Bible, it's because you're not learning the Bible for yourself.
Yes.
If you're not comfortable praying at home, you won't be comfortable when you have to pray out in public.
Absolutely.
Or if someone calls on you in church. That's because you're not doing it.
Yeah.
And one last thing I'd like to say with kids is us as parents, when we get into ministry, I think a lot of times we want to put ourselves in a lot of different ministries. I want to work with kids. I want to work on the welcome team. I want to work with greeting, with whatever it is.
Right.
Don't push your kids into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Having them work this, work
They're
this, work
unique
that.
individuals.
Right,
Yes.
because then they'll look at Christianity as this is just work.
Yeah.
It's work, it's work, it's work. Yes, explain to them that as a Christian, one of the things that you want to do is you want to serve others. And by serving others, you get involved in areas where you can get involved in.
Yeah.
But that does not mean get involved in every area. Because I've
3
seen
ministries.
Yeah,
I've seen so
exactly.
many kids, and I've heard parents now say that their kids are older and they don't want to have anything to do with Christ. And that's because you have them over here, doing this, doing that. And working for God or doing something for God does not mean you have a relationship with
That's exactly
God.
right.
Yeah.
That's
That's
two
exactly
totally
right.
different things.
Yep.
Working for God and working with God looks totally different.
Yes.
And I think
that is
parents,
so true.
I think parents a lot of times they see their kids working, and so they're like, "Oh, my little Johnny is, he's got a relationship with Christ. He's working
Right.
here. He's working here." That doesn't mean
And
he has a
inside
relationship.
little Johnny saying, "When I get done,
over
I'm
it.
out. I'm out.
When I'm 18
done."
and I'm out the house, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to apologize to my daughter, my 12-year-old, because when we started this church, I expected her to be the little, and that's her personality. She's the little greeter, the little bubbly person. But at 7 years of age, if a new kid came, she was the one. If the kid was 11 years old, I'm grabbing my 7-year-old, like, make them feel welcome, make their family happy.
Yeah.
Man, I was,
Yeah.
what a terrible example I was to her. And so I've had to apologize, and I even cringe. Like, it's one of those things where I'm just like, I wish I could do that over. And she stepped up to the challenge, and I think she's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is so much truth. So the two things that we pointed out right here is consistency and authenticity.
Yes. Yes.
We aren't doing God's work just to check off a box.
Right.
No,
That's a
no.
relationship.
No.
Right.
But consistency and authenticity. And then winding it down, do y'all have some Bible references, some encouragement that you can share with viewers, with parents, or anything else that you want to just kind of wind it down with?
Sure. I let Tiffany give one of her verses that she loves. We have a few for you.
Yeah, my favorite Bible verse, because we all face things. We all go through things. We all face testings. My favorite verse is Job 23:10. And it says, "For he knows the way that I take, and after he's tested me, I shall come forth as pure gold." So a lot of times when you're going through things and you feel like you're being tested, remember, you're just being refined by the fire that you're in at the moment. But when you're done being refined by God, you're going to come out shining, sparkly, and just great.
That's good.
Yes.
I got
yes.
goosebumps.
Oh yeah. And one of my favorite verses I use all the time, and as examples, is Hebrews 10:35-36. Do not throw away your confidence, which has great reward. That after you have done the will of God, you shall receive the promise. You know, God has things for us, and sometimes we're lacking confidence. We're lacking confidence. But what helps me in my confidence is knowing that Christ is a high priest who can be touched by the feelings that we've had. You know, we say that, well, Jesus didn't know about people having cancer. Jesus didn't know about COVID. Jesus didn't know about all the corruption that's going on or whatever, but he was tempted in all points like we are. And so, yes, and so in those 3 points, it covered everything that we would deal with and whatever. And so he knows what I'm feeling. He knows how things can come and darken our days. And yet he knows, and he overcame them all. And he says that we'll be able to overcome them. So we can be confident that whatever we're facing, that Christ is going to face with us. And there's a reward for us in the end. there's a reward. Sometimes we're rewarded with little things here. We're seeing our kids get saved. We're seeing churches grow. Our friends connect to us and come. But then there's a greater reward outside of that. And so that will keep you from growing weary, knowing that there's an even greater day coming.
Yeah.
There's a greater
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And man, having there was somebody on Facebook this morning. They talked about their relative who passed away, and they said, "I am thankful." It was actually Brian Burgess, Forward Church, but I'm thankful that this individual gave their life to Christ. This family member gave their life to Christ because I have a hope.
Yeah.
And I think that is the ultimate goal that we have to, as parents, we have to keep in our forefront. More than our kids being successful, more than our kids making money, more than our kids being somebody famous.
Yes.
They have to have a relationship with Christ because otherwise eternity is at stake.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's not worth it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
parents, don't give up your kids' eternity for your own desires
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
and our own selfishness.
Yes. Yes.
So let's be careful. What else do you have to close us out?
Hebrews 12:1 says, "Get rid of anything that slows you down." And I wrote this down possibly because I preached it over the weekend.
Okay.
When it comes to our walk with Christ, and with dealing with the past, dealing with 2020, we have things that slow us down and sin that trips us up. And the scriptures tell us that we have to be cognizant of those two things. And so we have to understand in your parenting, in your marriage, as a family, what are things that are weighing you down, that slows you down, and what are the sins that you're allowing that you have that are tripping you up? There may be some people on social media that you have to delete from social media. Stop holding on to friends that you don't want to embarrass because you don't want to unfollow them anymore. Let those people go. Go through your contacts, just like you're going through your closets and you're saying, "Well, I haven't used that foot massager in 2 years." Get rid of the foot massager. It's not necessary, but it's taking up space. You can put 2 pairs of shoes up there.
Right.
Go through your contacts and delete out the people that are tripping you up, that are distracting you because of the things that they say or do, maybe on social media. Get rid of the things that are weighing you down and slowing you down in your life. That's keeping you from running the life for Christ.
Yeah. And nobody can point those things out but you. That's self-reflection. That is you and God coming to terms and saying, "All right, so what is it? What do I need to clean out?"
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good.
And you can do it. If you do those things, focus on what's weighing me down, what's slowing me down, and what's tripping me up. You'll have a successful 2021 family.
There you go.
Family.
You'll have a successful 2020 decade.
Hey.
You will be successful as a parent, and people will be interviewing you to find out what was the success story.
Oh gosh.
Tiffany, anything you can say to close us out, finish up?
I would just say, and I know it sounds cliche, but just keep God in the center, and everything else will go around him.
Right.
As long as you have him in the center.
Yeah, and the center is not the family Bible on the coffee table.
No.
That's not keeping God in the center. It's
No.
actually bringing him in and talking about him throughout your day, through different scenarios, through sporting events, through driving in the car, through interactions on the radio, TV, friends, whatever.
Yes.
And bringing Christ into the center of the home. That's good.
Yeah.
Marshall, Tiffany, pastor at Reignite Church in Virginia Beach. Thank you guys so much for being here for the past 2 weeks.
Thank you for having us.
Greatly appreciated. You guys, I appreciate your friendship. We love you guys. Are so thankful for your testimony and how you lead. And we are praying for your ministry, and we're excited about continuing to move forward together in 2021.
Yes, thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
And so you guys watching, thank you for being a part. You can hit Marshall and Tiffany up on Facebook, Reignite Church. You can follow their page there and see what's going on over there. But thank you for watching. And to use some of these helps that they have shared with us, and let's start being the parents that God has called us to be while growing in our relationship with Christ. We'll see you online this Sunday, 9:30 and 11 o'clock, or hopefully you can make it in person. Don't forget to wear your mask at 9:30 under the tent at 11 o'clock. Have a fantastic